Well, when you look at the society that we're in, and we can often talk about this more easily in terms of politics, there's quite a bit of untruth going on often in politics. And there are quite a number of people in our country to begin with willing to believe or likely to believe, whether they're willing or not, these untruths. And they have monumental consequences.
Right.
We go to war based on an untruth.
Yes, the weapons. Yes.
So,
yes.
So how do I then bring the power of discernment to bear on one of those larger and I think fairly consequential issues?
I feel that disillusionment in any form with anyone actually is very beneficial. Even though it might sound, it might hurt in a moment, but if I actually know the reality of the situation of someone, it's actually beneficial. And the other thing is, my illusion is I am enabler of my own illusion. If I really want to know what the reality is behind everything, then for me, in this particular case, I would define, and I don't want to go into semantics about things, but about larger context of whether we go to war or not, and the information we have to go to war, is if I feel that in a way that we are, even before we know about weapons of mass, before we know about weapons or any of those things, before going to war, that we become a party to an illusion, and we are a very willing party to that illusion. It's way before that happens, not just in this particular context with a leadership. That I am actually, it's a matter of laziness. It suits me to be lazy. It suits me to believe that all my leaders are telling me exactly the truth and doing whatever. It suits me because it supports my habit in a way. Whatever habits I have, it suits me.
But the discernment then, the work of discernment based on that is more than spiritual centering. I have to take in information to counteract an untruth sometimes. So you use laziness as one of the problems, but that means that on the other end is vigor, that I have something that I'm supposed to do. What is it?
The first thing, when I was talking about the power of discernment as a clean and full intellect, the first thing is, of course, cleaning the intellect out, and the way you clean the intellect out is that you don't let it wander too much, you don't have too many waste thoughts going on about it, you don't analyze too much what's happening, why it's happening to me, all of those things. And so you don't do all of that, and you might ask me, how is that related to me discerning about what my leaders are telling me? But when you are able to do that on that personal level, on that individual level, then because you have a personal commitment to sit in your own reality, then the reality of everything around you becomes apparent. And so the first thing is a clean intellect, and then a full intellect. And the full intellect is that you fill your intellect with eternal truths about yourself. And so centering, especially centering based on wisdom, a centering based on a knowledge about, a full knowledge and understanding about yourself and the principles of life, is not just useful for me to be happy in my little room, but it's useful for the larger context on how I can govern myself and work in a community.
But let me push the question a little bit further then. If all of that prepares me to make a good decision, but in many cases where I have to make a decision based on some knowledge, are you saying that the full intellect in the spiritual sense, as you've defined it, also has to be filled with true knowledge? Or true knowledge is the wrong phrase, but maybe with secular knowledge.
Yeah.
And even then, I've got to discern what's knowledge and what's somebody's opinion of knowledge.
Here, when I'm talking about knowledge, I'm really talking about wisdom of the eternal truths, about just the basic fundamental questions that we all, I think, have to reflect on.
Such as?
Such as, who am I? What am I doing here? Is, what is my relationship with the divine, with the supreme? What is time? Where am I in time? What's happening in the world, not just in my little town in the United States, the larger context of time. In the larger context of time, which season are we in? What's going on in the world? How is everything, how are people responding to all of the different things that are happening in the world? So we have to become aware of all of that. And so when I mean wisdom and knowledge, I mean that not just secular knowledge about minor things that might go on in my community, of whether this congressman did this or this person did that or that, but there is a larger context of wisdom that I need to be reflecting on, and that's what I need to fill my intellect with.
So, again, because we often come to the question of whether you are trusting that once you reach this point, other things will appear clearer to you. Mm-hmm. If I'm not scanning the internet and reading multiple bits of news from all over the world, but I am filling my intellect spiritually as you defined it, how then do I ultimately arrive at the right answer when it's time to vote, when it's time to voice my opinion on something of some significance in the world around me?
In our knowledge base, and actually this is in Indian mythology, the power to discern is symbolized by a swan. And there's apparently a mythical swan in India, and there's a story goes that these mythical swans, that they were actually a group of them, the whole of swans, not right now, but mythically, that these swans were able to discern that if you could mix water and milk, that they were able to separate the milk out and drink the milk and not take in the water, or they were able to separate the stones and not the pearls. And so one of the things that is very clear about any spiritual path or any centering path, and that includes with the power to discern, is that I am in the world. I am completely aware of whoever it is that I'm going to vote for, that I'm completely aware of that. So I'm completely aware of, let's say, the mixing of the milk and the water in the situation around me, and that I'm able to just take the water or I'm able to just take the milk out from the water. And so the swan it's not the power to discern if the swan just drinks the milk. It's that the swan has this ability in this mythical swan apparently had the ability to discern it, to take it out, to separate the milk and the water. And so that's what we need to do. It's not necessarily just be there and say, oh, but someone feed me the milk and I'll drink the milk. And so you have to be aware of who you're voting for. You have to be aware of the issues at hand. You have to be aware of everything that's happening. And then you have to make the right decision, right discerning about it.